Beyond having an idea or even a product, one of the key stages to setting up a company is having a strong business model. This explains how your business will operate and all of the key aspects that need to come together in order to make that idea or product commercially viable. Often for many businesses, the core idea or problem that they're solving can be the same across multiple different businesses, but what makes them different is their business model. The types of customers they approach, the relationship they're going to have with those customers, the suppliers that they use, the resources they have access to. They might all use different ways of solving that same problem. And when you're designing your business, your goal is to figure out which business model fits best with the way that you want to interact with your customers. If you think about the core problem we're all familiar with, such as being entertained, different businesses solve this problem in different ways. Video streaming services like Netflix are very different from broadcasters like the BBC to cinemas like Cineworld. They all try to keep you entertained, but they all have very different business models and very different ways of solving that core problem. Let's have a look at a number of different examples of business models that you can mix and match to try and develop and consider which one works best for your idea. The manufacturer business model. This is quite a traditional approach where often they take raw materials and turn them into products. Sometimes that can be directly to the customer, so maybe think of car manufacturers, but often these manufacturers can be part of a supply chain where they supply to a number of different companies who then go on to create more and more different products that eventually get sold into the market. Manufacturers often identify the thing that they know best, the thing that they can produce at the best quality than anyone else, and really focus in on that. For them, this means that they may have higher costs in terms of the assets they need, the equipment, the machinery, the staffing, but lower costs in terms of the marketing because they might not have a direct-to-customer approach. Examples of manufacturing companies might be Ford producing cars, Nestle in food and drink, or Samsung in electronics. They all have a core focus on the products that they create and distribute to customers either themselves or through third-party retailers. The one big, many small business model, or also known as the razor and blades model. This is where a company sells a sort of higher value product to start with, but then in order to make that product worthwhile, you need to continue to buy higher margin disposable products that you then continue to buy on a repeat basis. This approach often means that on those initial big value items, the company doesn't make a significant amount of money, but on the repeat purchases, they tend to make a higher profit margin and they're able to sustain their customers over a longer period of time. The benefits of this business model allow you to be able to get recurring revenue over a longer period of time, but it does mean that it's harder to be flexible with your product offering because all of your subsequent products need to be compatible with that initial first offering. Example companies that use this business model might be Gillette with the razor and blades, Nespresso with the coffee machines and the pods, and Epson with the printers and the ink cartridges, which all require a regular repurchase of disposable items. The retailer business model is your standard high street store. This is where the company might not necessarily produce the products that they're selling, but may act as a middleman to distribute different products to customers and be the front end of the supply chain. For these businesses, they may have less costs in terms of producing products, but they are required to give more customer service and higher production value in terms of the retail outlet and the way they engage with the customer at the front end. For the retailer business model, there are some advantages in that they don't have to spend a huge amount of money on production costs or manufacturing, but they have to spend more time and attention on the appearance of their retail units and ensuring strong customer service, as they are going to be the face of these products and the relationship with the customer. Examples of retailers are grocery stores such as Tesco's, department stores such as John Lewis, or even clothing stores like H&M, where they maybe have lots of different product labels under that one brand. The e-commerce retailer is an adaptation on the retailer business model, and this is where again they don't necessarily produce the products themselves, they are a distributor, but they use the internet as their point of service for getting the products to the customer. The e-commerce approach can be advantageous because it is asset-light compared to brick and mortar stores. They have less requirements for retail outlets and less infrastructure costs in that side of things, but they may have to spend more money on distribution channels and delivery services and on high-end customer support compared to when you can just walk into a store and get support. Major examples of e-commerce retailers would be things like Amazon and eBay. The franchise business model allows a central business brand to be able to expand rapidly by using other separate entrepreneurs in different locations to set up their own branch of a central business. Franchises can be manufacturer based, where the actual company makes the products and services they sell, or retailer, where they distribute products from other companies. For the main business owner, franchises allow you to expand really quickly without having to take on the high expense of the properties or the risk of that business, because technically it is done by somebody else as a separate expense, and they can make money from that through license fees for using their brand and using their products and services. For the entrepreneur running the franchises, they get to be a business owner, but without having to spend years developing an idea or a brand, as they're able to access the major global brand of the franchise. They can also then guarantee more success from their customers due to the marketing efforts and reputation of the global brand. For the business using the franchise model, this can allow them to expand quite rapidly with lots of different business partners running franchises, but it can be harder to keep control over their quality and processes and their brand, so they need to have strict training processes and guidelines for the different companies using their brand. Examples of major companies that use the franchise model would be fast food chains like McDonald's or Pizza Hut, or retail chains like 7-Eleven. The platform model, or also known as the multi-sided model, is where the company offers a shared space that can connect customers or companies together, where they can share products, services, assets, or content. The platform works by making sure that they can connect supply with demand, and you need both sides of that model working together with enough customers and enough companies to allow the business to thrive. For the company, that could be a challenge, making sure that there's enough interest from both sides, but it can also be really asset light. They necessarily just set up the system and the infrastructure, but don't need to deal with the actual products, services, or assets that would be required to create value for the customers. The company would also have to spend a lot of time on marketing, on engagement with customers, and making sure they deal with any customer issues. Examples of major brands that use this approach would be things like Uber and Airbnb, where they create the platform to bring people together, but don't own the assets such as cars and hotels. The advertising business model is where the company can offer a certain amount of its products and services for free to users, but it relies on advertisers to be able to generate the income needed to sustain the business. This means that the business has the challenge of attracting enough advertisers to sustain the operations of the business, but in order to get the advertisers, they need enough customers to be able to sell the advertising space. This can be a challenging balance, but it can often be really useful because it allows them to connect with customers either free or at a really low cost and get maximum engagement with what the business is offering. Examples of companies that use this approach would be TV studios such as Channel 4 in the UK, could be Facebook with the opportunity to use social media, or it even could be newspapers such as Metro newspaper, where they're able to offer it for free, but you have to have adverts inside it. The subscription business model is an opportunity for the company to expand on what they're offering through getting recurring revenues. Instead of offering a one-off price to access a service or a product, they're able to offer sustained continual access for a regular fee. This model is very similar to leasing, where the customer can only continue to get access to the product or service by continually paying for it. But a downside of this means that they have to continue to keep the content fresh and up to date in order to make sure that people continue to subscribe to the service. Examples of companies that use the subscription business model would be Netflix, Dollar Shave Club, or even companies like Vodafone, which give you your phone or cell subscription. The freemium business model is an opportunity for particularly online businesses to attract an initial pool of customers with a completely free offering, but if they want to access additional features or services, they have to upgrade to a more premium listing, and they often have a ranking of different prices for different features. However, these companies have a challenge of making sure they can balance how many free users they have compared to how many are upgrading to the premium member, because the premium members are subsidizing all of the different services that the company offers. So they need to get a right balance of how many conversions they're able to track. Examples of companies that use the freemium model would be Hootsuite, Dropbox, or even Spotify, where you get a certain amount of access completely free and then you have to upgrade to continue to get more offerings. The software as a service business model, also known as SaaS, is where the company or customer can pay on demand for access to a service, infrastructure, or platform. Compared to offering a one-off price or a set fee, this can be really beneficial for the company because it means they don't need to spend time and money on infrastructure or offerings that the customer might not necessarily need or be using. For the company, software as a service can also mean the opportunity to get more regular recurring income and have a more diversified offering to the different customers. Examples of companies using this approach would be Microsoft with their 365 Office service, Salesforce, or Amazon with their web services package. The agency or consulting model is a really high-touch business model. This is where you often have a one-to-one business partner and client approach. The client may pay regular or one-off fees for particular services, and they expect a really strong relationship with the company that they're working with. For the companies using the agency model, this can mean you have to invest more time in staff and that customer relationship element, but it can result in higher earnings because you have a much stronger partnership with the businesses that you're working with, and they're likely to continue to work with you over longer periods of time and potentially pay higher sums of money because of the strong trust relationship you build up with them over time. Examples of companies using this approach could be advertising and marketing agencies like WPP Group, or it could be things like talent agencies like Creative Artist Agency. Similarly, financial consulting companies like Deloitte or even lawyers like Burness Paul would use a similar strong relationship approach with their clients. The buy one give one business model is a much more socially impactful approach. Often is where they try to attract customers by giving a product to someone in need for every product sold. For the companies using this approach, often profit may not be the driver, they're more interested in making a difference. This means that they have to have a strong look at their margins for what they're trying to sell, because for every one product they need to pay for two, but it can have a really strong impact on their brand reputation and the loyalty of the customers using them. Examples of companies using this approach would be Tom's Shoes, Warby Parker with their glasses, and Soapbox. There are hundreds of different approaches that you can take with your business model canvas, and it's up to you to try and flex these approaches to figure out which one works best for you and your concept. Try and have a look at your business model and experiment with each component part with your team. It can be quite a fun, creative thinking process to flip the model on its head. Looking at the pricing section, for example, what would happen if you offered your product completely for free? Or scale it all the way up to think what happens if you charge a really high premium? What about the customer relationship? Have a look at that and think about what would it be like if you had a really strong, intimate relationship with your customer compared to maybe be completely autonomous? Or are you going to be quite an asset-heavy business? Are you going to have lots of equipment and resources? To what if you owned nothing at all? You could have loads of different variations. You'll probably come up with 10 different business models for your idea. But your goal is to experiment with all of them, challenge yourself, innovate to find something different, and your goal is to filter that down to find which works best for your idea and which one is able to disrupt and make a difference in your product market.